And let's turn now to some new information we're hearing. We just learned former Ambassador Ric Grenell has landed in Antigua to negotiate with the Maduro team. Correspondent Sarah Williamson is following these latest developments from our New York newsroom right now. Sarah, very interesting developments, and Ric Grenell obviously has had some other discussions with the regime here. So what are you hearing?
That's right, Bianca. Look, Newsmax has now actually learned that Ambassador Ric Grenell, the administration's envoy for special missions, has now freed Joe St. Clair from a Venezuelan prison. Now, St. Clair is a highly decorated Air Force veteran, and he is now in Antigua with Grenell. He previously hadn't been heard of since November. Negotiations between Grenell and the Maduro team have been ongoing as the Venezuelan government continues to fund those weekly deportation flights of illegal aliens, which has resulted in more than 3,000 being returned so far. Discussions also over American oil companies operating in Venezuela are also continuing, with Ric Grenell and Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent extending the waiver for U.S. oil companies operating in Venezuela for another 60 days. The Trump administration revoked these licenses that had been granted years earlier due to sanctions imposed on Venezuela, but now the deadline for these licenses will be extended in order to complete the closure of these activities. Now, Special Envoy Grenell has been negotiating with the Venezuelans for a long time now. Earlier this year, he secured the release of 6 more Americans who were being held hostage in the South American country. There was at least 4 Americans still being illegally detained after that. Now we believe that number is down to 3, and we're going to continue to track the developments on this, Bianca, about that airman, Joe St. Clair, who has now been freed after negotiations by Ambassador Grenell. Bianca.
That is wonderful news. Sarah Williamson, thank you for that breaking update. For more on this, also more reaction to sanctions on Russia by the EU, I'm pleased to bring in former Trump Deputy National Security Advisor KT McFarland. She's also a board member at CPAC. We're going to get into all of this and also a little bit more on the Golden Dome. KT, great to have you. Welcome to Newsline. Let's first get your top line thoughts. So you have Grenell here in Antigua. He's had really great successes already. We got the news somebody's home, but also he's going to work with Treasury Secretary Bessent to extend waivers for oil licenses for American companies in Venezuela later today by 60 days. So there's a carrot, there's a stick. Talk to us about the importance of what's happening on the ground there and how it pertains to sort of not just trade, but also the pressure on Maduro.
You know, Ric Grenell deserves a lot of credit. I was with him last week, and we talked about the experience he had in getting the first batch of Americans released from Venezuela. And he said the first thing the president said to him was, "Congratulations, Rick, but we've got some left behind. You got to go make sure those get out." You know, this is not an easy thing. This is Ric Grenell going to the airport in Venezuela, having meetings with the Venezuelans for the first batch of them who were released. And then he was getting stiffed. So Ric Grenell went back to the plane and said, "I'm going back to America. You know where I am if you want to give us any of the Americans that you're holding illegally." And so sure enough, cars speeded up to the airport, to the tarmac, and out tumble several Americans. And they did not know they were being released. Grenell did not know they were going to be there. For all he knew, he was going to be arrested by the Venezuelans. So I think that he's paved the way for a very different relationship with Venezuela, which would be, again, carrots and sticks. The carrots, you want to be back into the international trading community? Do you want good relations? You want to normalize relations with Americans? Yeah. Great. But what you have to do in exchange is not only getting the Americans out, but there are a number of other things we want to.